Hi folks, it's good to see you from United Reformed Church in Somerville. This is a recording for the weekend of November 28th, the year 2021. Every year it comes around this time of year and we say, how can it already be Advent? Well, this year is no different. How can it already be Advent? But here we are, Thanksgiving weekend, first Sunday in Advent, as we begin the new church year. We begin this year with reading from the book of the prophet, one of the prophets from what we sometimes call the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures, Jeremiah chapter 33, reading a short passage, verses 14 through 16. The days are surely coming, says the Lord, when I will fulfill the promise that I made to the house of Israel and the house of Judah. In those days and at that time I will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David, and he shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. In those days Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will live in safety. And this is the name by which the city will be called. The Lord is our righteousness. Roughly 20 years ago, our family bought some land in Maine on a little lake in the middle of the state. And we wanted to finish our cottage and then give it one of those cute cottage names that people give, like Dunrovin or Do Drop In. After searching the internet for place-appropriate monikers, we settled on this one, the name Alini Benek. Alini Benek is a word from the Abenaki language, one of the people groups that inhabited Maine in ancient times. Alini Benek means the way summer is. We wanted our children to remember summers in Maine is the way summer is supposed to be. Laid back, simple, swimming at midnight if you want, deep, quiet woods, not have to worry about friendships or complications or anything like that, just to be able to be a family together. Alini Benek became a symbolic thing. The name, the way summer is, that was the name, our name for refreshment, for rest, for a name, for a home where we could just go and just be. We no longer own the cottage, but we long to go back from time to time, and sometimes when I need to go to that happy place in my head, that's exactly where I go. 2,500 years ago, the people of God, our own mothers and fathers, found themselves far from home, out of place, profoundly alienated from God's promises. God had told them that they would have their own place forever, but here they find themselves off in a strange land, in Babylon, in frankly breathtakingly beautiful Babylon, but as beautiful as it was, it wasn't home. It smelled off. The language sounded odd. The trees were different. The clothing was strange. They couldn't buy the right ingredients to make their own home cooking. Everything was strange. And so that strangeness, that displacement was in their minds when the prophet Jeremiah reminded them of the name of God's city, the name that was more than a name, the name that was to evoke a feeling, a sensation, a faith within them. This was the name. The city will be called The Lord is our righteousness. The Lord is our righteousness. No matter whether you are physically in your body in Jerusalem or not, it still is the Lord is our righteousness. No matter how your life changed, you could always count on this truth about this home, about this one place where you could be a Jew without being persecuted. The Lord is our righteousness. Adonai Tzedkah. But if Alini Benek was fairly easy to translate as the way summer is, What does this cryptic phrase, the Lord is our righteousness, what does it even mean? Man, it all sounds kind of nice and high-sounding and vaguely spiritual, but what does it mean? Scholars tell us that righteousness in the ancient Near East, for the ancient Hebrew people, that righteousness had to do with a particular form of justice in which the judge is honorable and speaks the truth and treats every man or woman according to what they're due. According to what they're due. Now, I have to be a little tricky with that, because what they're due could mean, well, maybe some deserve a reward and others deserve a punishment. That may be true, but what's due a person, fundamentally, even before you get to guilty or not guilty, what is due you is your standing in court as a person with rights and responsibilities before the covenant and before the law. A righteous judge is fair when she treats every plaintiff, every defendant the same way, because that is what they are due as citizens, we would say. So back to the Lord is our righteousness. What does that mean? It means that the Lord of Moses is God, treats everyone according to their standing in God's court. And what is that? What is their standing? Well, they could remember from their story, when they were in bondage in Egypt, the Lord chose you because the Lord loved you. That's in Deuteronomy 7. Back when they were wandering in the wilderness, the prophet said to them on God's behalf, I remember your love as a bride. When they were on top of the world with David as king, what had Samuel promised? On God's behalf, Samuel promised, I will not take my steadfast love from you. When we were in exile, you are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you. Are you sensing a theme here? The Lord is our righteousness, this name, this evocative name of the city beyond the borders of Jerusalem, the name of the place where God dwells, no matter where we physically dwell. The name reminds us of God's fierce and indomitable love for God's people. The name reminds us of our home in God's heart and God's home in ours. All of which remains, should I say it a bit head in the clouds, nebulous. It feels sort of like it's supposed to feel good, but what difference does it actually make? Let's go where the rubber hits the road. The Lord is our righteousness. Well, when you sit by the bedside of your lifelong love and you and the kids have made the decision to discontinue heroic measures, and you stare into a terrifying tomorrow, not knowing whether you will have strength to carry on, knowing that you will always have a home in God's heart, even though you soon feel out of place in your own home. It's important to know that you will have that place in God's heart. When you seethe with anger at a political or judicial decision made in Washington or Trenton, a decision that you're well aware may take away your dignity, your freedom, perhaps your livelihood, not because of anything you've done, but because you look a certain way, or you're a certain age, or because you love the folks you love. It's good to know that your standing with God matters infinitely more than your standing with the powers that be. When you are displaced, out of place, far from home. It could be your first year in college if you went away to school, your first time away from home on a Christmas morning, and you long to be with family. It could even be something like a car failure on a busy highway in the dead of night, or even if you've been told all your life that your body just isn't right, and you don't feel at home in your own skin and bones, you need to hear the good news. The Lord is your righteousness. The Lord is your righteousness. You are connected to God by the strength of God's love. You are still with mercy wound round and round as if with air, as Gerard Manley Hopkins put it. And even, here's the last example, even if you sit in the crowd at your own child's wedding, hearing all the high-sounding talk about love and commitment and all that, and you're sitting there listening and you're knowing the places that your own marriage has wobbled, and you're not all that sure about this person that your baby is marrying, and you're somehow 100% happy and 100% anxious at the same time, a still small voice comes to you. The Lord is our righteousness. The Lord is our righteousness. And it doesn't exactly make everything okay, but at least you can breathe. At least you can breathe, knowing that God's grace is sufficient even for these two young lovers. And it's enough for you too. The Lord is our righteousness. This is the name of the home we have always known, and yet it lies ahead of us. We hope for it in all its fulfillment. We're homesick for it. We long to get there, to settle in, simply to be and to breathe and to be accepted as we are, for who we are. So join me, my homesick friends, in aligning our hearts in hope for the home that lies ahead. Hope for the one who empties himself, leaves his home to make a home with us for a season. And hope for the one who is coming, who is still coming, who recognizes himself in each of us and who calls us by our own names and says, "My friend, my beloved one, be not afraid. Peace, peace be with you." That's the good news for this week, folks. The good news, the Lord is our righteousness. Take that word with you as you go into your Thanksgiving, or maybe as you go into Sunday. I don't know when you're going to watch this, but may you be blessed by it, and may you find God's blessings all the time, especially as we begin this year, this what we in the church call Year C in the lectionary cycle. God be with you now and always. See you next week.